Hi, I'm Michelle Sakurka. The New Jersey Business and Industry Association is committed to educating the public about the important issues impacting New Jersey's businesses and economy. That's why we're proud to support the important programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
Women in Leadership next on Caucus New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Berkeley College.
QualCare Inc., a managed care company administering health plans that care about your health care.
The Give Something Back Foundation, providing mentors and scholarships to help Pell Grant-eligible students go to college and graduate in 4 years debt-free. Choose New Jersey. Our mission is attracting companies to the Garden State. Adler Aphasia Center, helping stroke and brain injury survivors recover their speech. Verizon.
And by the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor. Insurance fraud costs New Jersey families $1,300 a year.
Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And by Politicker NJ.
Welcome to Caucus New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. You know, there's no secret that there is a serious lack of women in corporate leadership roles worldwide. Yet studies have shown that companies with women in leadership simply perform better. Here to discuss why it's so important to get more women into leadership, we're joined by 4 really terrific leaders who just happen to be women. We're joined by Barbara Kauffman, who is Executive Vice President of the Newark Business Regional Partnership. Michellene Davis is President-elect of Executive Women of New Jersey, and we'll talk about her RWJ Barnabas Health executive post in just a minute. Ellen Lambert is Chief Diversity Officer for PSEG, and a 2016 salute to the policymakers honoree. Eleanor Ojinnaka is 2015 scholarship winner of the Graduate Merit Award Program. I thank all of you for joining us, talk about women in leadership positions. Michellene, we started this conversation with you a while back. I called Ellen and I said, let's do this. Why are we doing this program and why is it so incredibly important?
Oh, Steve, it is such an incredibly important issue because, quite frankly, it is the discussion that is happening not just across the country, but across the world. Right now, companies in a variety of countries are looking at their bottom line and, quite frankly, examining the improvement to that bottom line as a result of having women in their executive suites and women on their boards.
By the way, make it clear what your role at RWJ Barnabas Health is.
The Executive Vice President and Chief Corporate Affairs Officer.
What's the matter? You're an underachiever? Well. That is incredible. And by the way, previously, we should let people know that Michellene, in state government, some of your roles have been?
You love this. So Chief Policy Counsel to a former New Jersey governor, Acting State Treasurer for the state of New Jersey, and CEO of the New Jersey Lottery. And
we're going to talk about everyone individually here. Ellen has headed up a whole range of foundations over the years that we've worked with, and each one of you has an individual story that's fascinating. But Ellen, I do want to ask you, we've talked about this issue and other issues for a long time. The numbers are staggering. The seat at the table, a report that was put together for Executive Women of New Jersey, by Executive Women of New Jersey. Why are there so few women in leadership positions? What the heck is the problem?
Well, I think if you look at where you elevate yourself from positions, who's seen at the table, very often it's men, it's the golf outing, it's the lunch together, it's the club. I also think that sometimes women who rise up and who've been in positions of leadership for a long time had to pretend that, bring forward masculine characteristics, had to pretend that they were one of the guys, and they also fail to promote women as well. So I think it's a matter of encouraging women to get in and to keep elevating the conversation about moving them up. But it is a culture. It's been a cultural habit. It is a culture
that has not changed dramatically.
It's changing, but we're pushing it along.
Not dramatically.
This is not dramatically.
Agreed,
yet.
Barbara?
No, the numbers have not moved significantly. Between 2013 and 2015, the 2 reports that we published, A Seat at the Table, it improved about 2%. At that rate, it would take 75 years or so to be able to reach the point where we want to reach. So that's why in the report we came up with recommendations for a multifaceted approach to how we start to change things. And it involves a whole bunch of different players, among them the male leaders, and the importance of the pledge that Barry Ostrowski took to be committed as a male CEO.
Sure.
Michelene's
We'll talk about that in a second.
CEO.
By the way, let's talk about the executive women of New Jersey, and I'll come to you just in a moment, Eleanor. Executive women of New Jersey that you will be heading up. That's how we first heard about this. I believe it was our friends at NJ Biz were doing a feature story. We read it, and I called Michellene. I said, "Tell me what this is." And you know, Barbara mentions Barry Ostrowski, the CEO of RWJ Barnabas Health. What does Barry have to do with this story, and why is it significant?
Barry was kind enough to lend not just his name and reputation, but quite frankly, his time and attention to serving as the honoree of our gala this year. And so as a result of that, we were also able to ensure that he was involved in a variety of things, including our report, A Seat at the Table. When Barry was interviewed in his preparation and thinking about what we really and truly could be doing as companies in a variety of ways, he thought about the fact that what it really just boils down to is the fact that the individuals who occupy the seats, the decision-making seats, the policy-making seats today, need to actually arrive at a level of conviction around being committed truly to making the difference.
Your story, particularly as you listen to your colleagues, women in leadership positions. First of all, how did you get connected to this? And then I'll follow up with something after that. Go ahead.
So I received an email from the chair of our department, and he
Where?
said, from Montclair State University,
Okay.
about 2 years ago, and he said, "This is a great opportunity. You're a graduate student. You're female.
You have
need some-"
a graduate degree in chemistry.
Yes, I just
Okay.
got my master's in chemistry from Montclair State
Congratulations.
University. Thank
Go
you
ahead.
very much. And he said to apply for the scholarship, and so that's exactly what I did. And I had never heard of the Executive Women of New Jersey before I applied for
didn't
the
know it?
scholarship. I didn't know it. And when I got the scholarship application and I went to the website, I was so amazed at what I found on the website, the mission and values of the Executive Women of New Jersey, and to find out about all these amazing things that women were doing in the world and in New Jersey, which is local to me.
Right.
So I was very, very honored to receive the letter a few months later.
Where were you born?
I was born in Nigeria, which is a country in West Africa, and I grew up there for about 9 years, and then I moved to the United States and have continued my education here since.
Let me ask you something. When you say to yourself, I want to be a leader, how do you finish that sentence? In what? Doing what? Can you finish it at your tender young age? Whatever that is, because I don't ask.
I want to be a leader that inspires not just young females, but everyone. I want to be a leader that makes a change, not just here in the United States, but back home where I'm from. I want to be a leader that inspires others around me to also become leaders as well. I just want to make change and inspire people to become better.
Ladies?
Be still my beating heart.
This is why we do what we do.
Yeah.
What did you
It's
just
really
hear?
inspiring to see, you know.
I heard what would come out of my mouth today. Young age, kind of senior in that aspect. That was a really articulate, true and passionate way to talk about, I think, what we all care about and what EWNJ does stand for.
Is there a responsibility? As I was listening to you, Eleanor, I thought to myself, sometimes I think that, and the gentlemen, the guys watching right now, don't take offense to this, but you will anyway. Sometimes I think that women, not across the board, nothing's across the board, that a higher percentage of women look out for each other and want to be supportive of each other and care about each other and want to help in ways that we don't relate to. And I was listening to you, I was thinking that. And I don't believe you just mean women, by the way. Am I getting that wrong?
Oh, you are not getting that wrong. The truth of the matter is that I think that we find that in many, quite frankly, demographics where we see individuals who have shared struggle, right? Because when I look at her, what I think of is that which I had to go through, right? I'm certain that these women are doing the same. There is a certain...
I mean, you weren't born of privilege in Camden, New Jersey?
It is amazing. It is amazing, really. No, I was born of character, right?
Yeah,
and so
right.
that is why, hence, the reason for the background of struggle. So the fact that she went from Nigeria to Irvington, New Jersey, and then now sits here ready to set the world on fire. I'm encouraged about the future, Steve, because she is going to be a part of it. We undoubtedly have a tendency to look out for each other more. As a matter of fact, there's a famous quote, right? There's a special place in hell reserved for women who do not look out for each other.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
And that is because there is a charge that we hopefully set out to ensure that we pass on from generation to generation. It is not enough to be a first. It is not enough to be an only. It is not enough until there are so many of us that they have stopped counting.
But you know what's so interesting about this? Michellene is obviously a top-level executive where she is. You are, and have been, very often the only woman. And just because we, again, have several foundations, let's just say, and corporate posts. You've dealt with that. How difficult is that? Being the one or one of the few?
You just persevere. You just do your best, and you work harder. You work more diligently to be able to show your worth. But you had to prove your worth. You really had to prove your worth. And what we're trying to do is to make the path easier for the women behind us.
That is the goal, to make it more doable and easier?
Well, to really employ a number of different strategies at the same time. Not to be satisfied that if we do one thing, that's going to be enough. But to say that we have to do multiple things at once, and we have to engage many parties. Women are important, but men are very important to the equation too.
We matter in this. Yes, Ellen?
I think it's very important also in those positions, it's when you're alone and you look around for that other woman, for that other like person, to be your strongest self, to make your honest mistakes, to take the stand that you believe in. Because I could not encourage a young woman like Eleanor or my son or any young people to move towards leadership without real confidence that we all make mistakes, right? We all take positions that others may not favor. And that in leadership roles, it becomes far more important to say them, to act them, than when you're not seen, because that's how you change the status quo as well.
You know, we're going to take a quick break right here. When we come back, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. You've talked about not only confidence, but you've also said that authenticity is magic. I want to understand that. But there's one other thing that I always think about. The challenges that women face that very often listen, it's not easy for guys either, but in a different way. I would argue that the disproportionate number of women who I know who have succeeded have had to balance and juggle and take care of people and things that, guys, we can't even relate to. Be right back right after this.
To see more Caucus New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Welcome back, folks, talking about women in leadership positions. Michellene, you have told our producers, and you've said it before, authenticity is magic. Translate.
One of the things that I've found throughout my leadership opportunities, really, which I regard highly as service leadership, right? And so it really is, any promotion, it's really just an opportunity to serve more individuals. But that when you show up as your authentic self, when you show up as the self who has been willing to take a risk and to make a mistake, that with creative innovation oftentimes also comes missed opportunity, that when you evidence that to those that you are leading, that quite frankly they realize that they are truly on this journey with you. And so that's one of the goals of Executive Women of New Jersey, quite frankly, to ensure that young women feel that they are able to show up as their authentic selves, that they are able to bring their whole selves to any place of employment. That's why, quite frankly, the strategies employed and recommended in the Seat at the Table report
couple of examples
are so incredibly important. Well, I know that Barbara can wax poetic about these.
Just give me a couple. By the way, log on to our website. Jackie, do we have the Executive Women in New Jersey website? Put it up as well. We'll put it up as you speak. Just a couple of examples, and I promise I'll come back to you.
Skill sets.
Skill sets.
A board, a diverse board, should employ people, for example, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is such a hot issue. Board governance, HR. A lot of women have gone into HR professions, but does a board strategically think about finding someone who's an expert in HR? As I said, cybersecurity. Expanding the pool, using a search firm and charging that search firm with identifying women as candidates.
Don't just talk to yourselves, like 5 guys get around and talk to each other. Who are they going to pick?
Right.
Yeah.
Who they know?
So Steve,
Term limits.
Yes,
Term
absolutely.
limits.
One of the things that has happened is the fact that oftentimes they look at who the existing CEOs are, and so they always say, well, we want a retired CEO. Well, we've already known that that all of the CEOs are still men, and so for some reason they say
It's
at the end of that,
pool, no?
exactly, right, we can't find a qualified women in this, but it is because of exactly what Barbara is intimating right now, that they have to expand the scope and the lens through which they view successful leadership.
Yeah. Stay on that. Confidence. I'm always fascinated by this issue of confidence because Michellene knows this well. I do a lot of leadership and communication coaching, and I struggle with, people struggle with confidence. And so I always ask, and disproportionately there are women, men as well, but a lot of women will hunch over and, by the way, Dr. Amy Cuddy has done incredible research on this, on presence, executive presence, and she'll talk about people, women, getting smaller. I don't want to get too deep into this, but here's my thing. I have been struck by how many women don't present with confidence, either because they're concerned about how they may be coming across, or they actually don't feel confident. Where does yours come from?
A lot of it comes from looking at women around me that are in leadership. First, I have to say a lot of it comes from my mom. She's very, very hardworking, and you can see that even though she isn't maybe in a leadership position, she behaves like a leader and she carries herself like a leader. And from that, I'm able to go outside when I leave the house and act like the princess that I am. And then when I look around and I see women who are already in leadership position, or I go online and I Google, top chemist, and a woman comes up, that gives my heart a little bit of spring that, yes, Eleanor, you can do this and you can become that, chief executive officer. That's where the confidence comes from.
It's important to see others, is it not?
It's very important to see others. It makes a big difference to see that there is another woman in a position that you aspire to be.
You say this too, don't you?
I do.
Who did you look to?
Myself and my family. I was a single mother of 2. I worked full-time in the day, went to law school at night. Looked at my daughters and said, there has to be a better way.
But how did you know?
I didn't, Steve. Every place I stepped, every mistake I made, I owned. And every time I had an opportunity, I would say, take this opportunity, don't step in, show your children what they need to do. And today one is a 3rd-year surgical resident and the other is a lawyer who does domestic violence and child abuse for a nonprofit law firm. So I'm very proud, but it was me and the 2 girls and my mother and father saying, it's okay, keep going.
You did not have a mentor?
I did not.
Did not?
No.
Real quick, only the second award that I know that you accepted publicly was the award from this organization. Explain that.
I fund organizations. My career has been about, and so I don't think ethically I can take an award from an organization that I fund. I've known Barbara a long time.
I've been trying to nominate her for years.
And I have respected particularly what EWNJ is doing. And I felt that at this point in my career, it was an honor to be honored by a group that cares so much to set an example, not just for young women, but young people.
Sure.
And that's why I accepted the award.
That's an important part of what Executive Women does, because it's a place where women in the executive ranks can come together, talk about their challenges, and talk about it in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Talk about authenticity. The women who are in executive positions today need to be able to have a place to be authentic, and they can be there. The 38 other women that were honored with Ellen all now have a place that they can come to be able to share their experiences.
Beautiful thing.
And to talk about how they help others.
I don't know if I asked you this publicly. We've had so many conversations offline and online. Where does your confidence come from?
Oh, my goodness. I often say my father was a feminist. And so I say that because my mother is this wonderfully genteel spirit who, as you know, is addicted to watching your show.
Well, you know.
But I will tell you that my father understood that he was called to a special role because he had daughters. And so I was told it was in my breakfast cereal. I mean, literally, right, that there is absolutely nothing that can ever stop you except yourself.
You were told that early on?
Very early on.
You believed it?
In my very being.
I think that's very important. Actually, today, my mom does it as a joke, but she calls me and my youngest sister princesses, and she does it, and it does a lot. And you know, when she first started, I was like, stop. But then now it's become a part of our natural routine, and it does a lot to a young lady's confidence, I think.
Let me say this to you, Steve. The truth of the matter is that once we leave the auspices of our home, right, what our parents knew was that we were going to go out into a world which already had a low-level expectation for us, right? It already declared that there was going to be a lower standard that we were ever going to actually attain. And so, quite frankly, when you have young girls, when you are raising young girls who you know are set to be young women, girls with dreams become women of vision.
So as you say this, I'm so fascinated by this because you talk about the role of parents and, you know, mentoring, promoting, coaching. Not everyone has that. So in many ways, it takes others to do that for young women and others, correct? And that's what your organization is doing. But also that's what sometimes men in leadership positions have a responsibility to do. Ellen, jump in.
So, particularly at PSEG, what I'm finding is men are really encouraged now to mentor young women, young engineers, young women in the sciences, and it's really gratifying. They're not leaving young men out, but they are opening their doors to young women in leadership. There's a young woman who works out in the field and manages 40 men. She is younger than most of them, and she gets tremendous support from her supervisor.
From the guys?
Yes, she's getting tremendous support. Doing diversity and inclusion in a company where you are part bargaining unit and part non-bargaining unit, I'm seeing incredible changes in respect.
We're getting better at this?
You are getting better at this, yes.
Well, what's important there is also the realization that you have to get better at this, right?
Yes.
You do that.
Right. Absolutely.
Why do companies do better with women in charge?
Oh my goodness, they do better with women in charge because of the fact that we have a natural leadership style that tends to build by consensus, right? We really do believe in win-win, that we welcome everyone to the table and then we decide what it is that we're going to develop in the direction in which we are going to go. But no one feels like they are left out and not able to come right along for that ride.
So
There's a
true.
critical breaking point at 3 or more directors. If there
Yes.
are 3 or more women on a board, the metrics improve markedly. The return on investment, the sales
3 or more.
figures.
Someone's got, they believe in their head, I hate to use the word token. Yeah, we have a woman on the board. That's not it. You've got to have 3 or more to make a difference, Barbara, is that it?
There is research is demonstrated, and not just by one organization. Catalyst, Credit Suisse, a number of different reports have come to the same conclusion. And it's partly because of the way that women contribute to the conversation, that they think about risk assessment, they think about changing term limits. That's a biggie. Term limits are part of what prevent women from
rotating people.
Exactly.
Ellen, you're not buying all of it?
I buy some
Because I'm
of it,
reading
but
body
I want to
language,
add,
you know.
You are very funny. I think that it's also women ask for directions, men don't. And I think that women hear the full 360 degrees, and you've heard me say this before, body language or not. Women are willing to hear this.
Yes.
Many men, and more are willing to hear, but most men stop here. This is my opinion. I've been doing this for 30 or 40 years, and this is the way it's done. And I think that's a cultural issue, but do you ask for directions?
Could I ask Eleanor a question?
I'm sorry.
Stop it. I know some of you too well here, and you know me more importantly. I have a couple minutes left here. I want to ask you something. What responsibility do you feel you have moving forward? I mean, you talked about looking to others. What responsibility, Eleanor, do you feel you have to others, women, in inspiring and motivating them?
My responsibility is to encourage by being an example, encourage by letting them know that it's possible, I feel responsible because I look around me and I see that there are young women who want to aspire to these leadership positions, and they may not, based on the environment, for example, in Nigeria or in Irvington where I live, based on their environment, they don't think it's possible, or they don't think that it's something that they can reach for. And as a person coming out of this environment and reaching these positions and letting them know, yes, there's support up here and you can come up here too, I think it will inspire more of them to reach for the stars, if I may say that.
Got a couple seconds left. Last thing you want to say to her, for a couple seconds.
Oh my goodness. That I have waited for you all my life. And that we are so glad that
All right,
you're
let
here.
them talk off camera. Listen, I cannot thank the four of you enough. Extraordinary leaders who happen to be women and who happen to have just inspired an awful lot of people. Thank you so much. You made a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Berkeley College,
Qualcare Inc.,
the Give Something Back Foundation, Choose New Jersey, Adler Aphasia Center, Verizon,
and by the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor.
Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Think this is absurd? Insurance fraud costs every New Jersey family over $1,300 every year. Report fraud at njinsurancefraud.org.